that feeling of wanting to tell everyone about an incredible plan you just had? That urge to share a dream, a project, or even that small achievement that only you know how much it cost? Well, most people do exactly that. They talk, and act very little. But the story I want to tell you today begins when you decide to do the opposite. Imagine this. You wake up on an ordinary day. The sun hasn't even risen properly. The house is quiet, and nobody knows that there, in that moment, you're making a decision that could change your entire life. You grab a simple notebook, one of those really cheap ones, and discreetly write down your first financial goal. Nothing huge, nothing extraordinary, just the first step. And you know who saw it? Nobody. And that's exactly where the magic begins. Because when you work in silence, you remove the weight of other people's opinions. There's no aunt asking, "But does that really make money?" There's no friend dropping a comment that seems innocent, but plants insecurity. And there's no voice of doubt that people, without realizing it, push into your mind. In silence, you become a gardener. You plant the seeds in hiding. You water without showing anyone. You care for it even on days when everything seems slow. And when the plant finally grows, when the result appears, when the fruit ripens, you know what happens. The same people who doubted start asking, "How did you do it?" And you know the answer. You did it because you didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Because silence protects your plans. Because when nobody knows what you're doing, nobody can sabotage, not with words, not with judgments, not with envy. Working in silence isn't hiding from the world. It's protecting yourself while you grow. It's evolving without distractions. It's focusing on your steps one at a time until the result is so big that nobody can ignore it. Silent wealth doesn't begin when the money arrives. It begins when you decide to walk without noise. The story continues the next day when you realize something simple but powerful. Nobody gets rich by chance. Wealth isn't luck. It isn't a miracle. It isn't inheritance. Wealth is consequence. And the first seed of that consequence is knowledge. Think of it this way. Imagine that money is a game with rules, shortcuts, penalties, and rewards. Now tell me, how can someone win a game they don't understand? Simple, they can't. And that's exactly what you discovered in that moment. With little money, perhaps even with a tight salary, you decided to study the game. You didn't need an expensive course, nor difficult books. It was enough to start with what you had in your hands: short videos, simple articles, notes in your notebook. You started small, but you started. And something curious happened. The more you learned, the more the pieces began to fit together. Suddenly words like asset, liability, compound interest, equity, passive income began to make sense. The financial world, which before seemed like a labyrinth, now seemed just like a map. And you were learning to decipher it. You discovered, for example, that compound interest works like a tree that grows on its own while you sleep. You learned that assets are like small, invisible employees working in your favor. And you understood that liabilities are like water leaks, discreet but dangerous, that drain your money without you noticing. And the more you learned, the more you noticed a truth that almost nobody talks about. Those who understand the money game are years ahead, even with little. That's why some people, even earning little, manage to evolve quickly. And others, even with high salaries, remain stuck in the same place. Knowledge is what separates those who are just working from those who are building a future. And the best part, financial education is silent. Nobody sees you studying. Nobody sees you rewatching videos, doing calculations, learning about investments. But one day, when your income grows, when your investments start to yield, when people notice that your life took a leap, they'll say, "Wow, your life changed out of nowhere." And you'll know the true story. It wasn't out of nowhere. It was because you became a master in what almost nobody studies. And look, if this message is already helping you, if it makes sense to you, go ahead and like this video now. This shows me that this content is helping you change your relationship with money and encourages me to continue bringing more videos like this to you. The journey continues when you understand that you don't need to have much to start. You just need to have consistency. And it was at this point that you made one of the smartest decisions of your life. Start small, but start now. Imagine the scene. You open your account, take a deep breath, and decide to set aside $20 or $30 or $50. Is it little? Yes, it's little. But that's exactly what makes this step so powerful. It's silent. Nobody notices, nobody comments, nobody applauds. But every month on the same day, that amount automatically goes out and goes straight to your future. And you know what's most incredible? Over time, that money starts to grow like a jar you fill drop by drop. At the beginning, it seems like it makes no difference. You look and think, wow, it's still small. No, but after a few months, you look back and realize that amount is already bigger than you remembered. And after a year, you realize that habit, which seemed so simple, has already created something you never would have achieved if you had waited for money to be left over. Because the truth is this, money never is left over. It needs to be set aside. And when you automate this process, you remove the weight of willpower, of emotion, of I'll do it tomorrow. The money goes on its own. The investment grows on its own. The habit builds itself. That's how people who get rich silently do it. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They create the perfect moment. After automating your small investments, you begin to notice something curious. Depending on just a single source of income is like trying to balance your entire life on one leg. It works until someone pushes. That's when you made another silent but extremely powerful decision. Start building new small rivers of money, one at a time, without rush, without hurry, and without needing to announce it to the world. The first extra source of income you created was simple. Maybe a freelance job, maybe selling something you knew how to do, maybe a small service in your neighborhood. Nothing glamorous, nothing gigantic, just the first brick. And something interesting happened. That small extra amount gave you a feeling of freedom you hadn't felt in years. Over time, you tested something else, an online sale, a used object you didn't need anymore. Your knowledge transformed into help for someone else. And so, slowly, discreetly, almost imperceptibly, another thread of income began to trickle. Nobody saw, nobody commented, nobody imagined that behind that ordinary routine, you were building something big. And you know why? Because most people only notice when the result explodes. They never see the beginning. They never see the silent dawns, the studies, the tests, the mistakes, the attempts, the adjustments. The truth is simple. A silent rich person rarely starts with a lot of money, but almost always starts with many small sources, and each one grows in its own time. Sometimes, for months, an extra income seems too small to make a difference. But remember, that's how rivers begin, with small trickles of water that meet. When you realize it, that trickle has already become a current. And without fanfare, without showing off, without calling attention, you began to build your freedom slowly, but solidly. Over time, while your small sources of income grew slowly, you realized something fundamental. Your current income doesn't define who you'll be in a few years. The truth is that the market pays little not to those who are bad, but to those who don't know the value of the right skills. And that's when you took another silent step, perhaps one of the most important of your life. You decided to learn something new. Not something complicated as many people imagine, but a skill that is really valued in the real world. And the most impressive thing? You didn't need to stop life, nor go back to college, nor invest rivers of money. You started studying little by little, in the breaks, on weekends, at night, when the house was already quiet, First, you discovered that there are skills that are worth gold. Writing, because those who know how to communicate never run out of opportunities. Sales, because everything in the world depends on selling something. Even ideas. Technology, because it's the language of the future. Digital marketing, because those who know how to appear prosper. Soft skills, those human skills that transform any person into someone indispensable. And as you learned, something magical happened. You began to see yourself differently. That thought of, I earn little because my salary is low, began to dissolve. You understood that salary isn't a limit and it's a reflection. And reflections can change when you change what you carry inside. At the beginning, learning new skills can seem slow, but after a few weeks, you notice small improvements. After a few months, you become different. And after a while, the market begins to see you with different eyes. Opportunities appear without you chasing them. People seek you out. Your value increases. And if you want, even your main income can multiply. All of this built in silence, without fanfare, without speeches, without showing off. Just you, your dedication, and a skill that nobody can take from you. As you dove deeper and deeper into learning these new skills, something very interesting began to happen inside you. It was as if a new world was slowly opening before your eyes, revealing paths that before seemed invisible, even though they were so close. You realized that your entire life you had walked with the feeling that your financial destiny was tied to the size of your salary, as if it were inevitable to remain in that same pattern forever. But as you began to study and practice, you came to understand that a person's real value in the market isn't in the position they occupy, nor in the paycheck they receive, but in the ability they develop to solve problems that other people can't or don't want to face. With this new vision, every minute you dedicated to studying became a kind of silent, almost secret investment that accumulated inside you without anyone noticing. While many around you saw just another ordinary day, you were expanding your repertoire, strengthening your skills, and above all, transforming yourself in a way that only those who live this process understand. It wasn't just about studying sales, marketing, technology, communication, or any other high-value skill. It was about understanding that each small evolution, however small, was silently shaping a much more prepared professional than the one that existed a few months before. Over time, you began to notice small changes in your way of thinking, acting, communicating, and even perceiving opportunities. Ideas that before seemed distant now seemed possible, and situations that before scared you began to become challenges you faced naturally, because your mind no longer saw limitations with the same strength as before. Little by little, you realize that knowledge works like a lens. The more you learn, the clearer the scenario around you becomes, and the easier it is to identify what few see. This internal transformation didn't happen explosively or suddenly. It was a calm movement, almost imperceptible, similar to the silence of dawn, when the light emerges slowly until it illuminates everything. And it was exactly this light, generated by your constant effort to learn and improve, that began to change your posture before market opportunities. You stopped waiting for someone to decide your value and came to understand that value begins inside you, in the skills you choose to develop, in the knowledge you accumulate, and in the discipline you maintain, even when nobody is watching. And it's precisely this process, silent, continuous, and deeply transformative, that differentiates those who remain stuck in the same place from those who evolve to the point of creating paths that money inevitably begins to follow. Because when you master valuable skills, it doesn't matter where you are, what your current salary is, or what difficulties exist around you. The market always finds a way to recognize those who become capable of delivering what few can. With the advancement of your journey, You began to realize that getting rich isn't just about earning more, learning new skills, or creating various sources of income. It's also, and mainly, about controlling the way you relate to the money you already have. That's when you discovered the rule that almost all rich people follow, even if they never talk about it openly: the art of living below what you earn. Contrary to what many imagine, wealth isn't born from great excesses, but from the silent intention to spend less than what comes in, month after month, until forming a solid base that sustains all other achievements. This change begins subtly, when you decide that you no longer need to prove anything to anyone through objects, appearances, or impulsive purchases. You understand that while many try to appear rich to others, the truly rich prefer to appear normal, precisely because they know that real value isn't in what they display, but in what they build in silence. It was at this point in your story that you began to feel a different freedom, almost invisible. The freedom to look at your own money with responsibility, without guilt, without anxiety, and without that urgency to spend to fill momentary voids. You began to notice that you no longer needed to keep up with the accelerated pace of people who live seeking approval through consumption, because you understood that this race never ends. Instead, you chose to walk a more stable and intelligent path, where each financial choice comes to have a purpose. You decided to adjust small habits, not radically, but gradually, respecting your time, your conditions, and your reality. You discovered that preparing a meal at home a few times a week could represent significant savings at the end of the month. That canceling a subscription you barely used was like recovering money that was slipping through your fingers, and that avoiding impulse purchases gave you a surprising feeling of control. And the most interesting thing is that while many thought that living below what you earn meant giving up pleasure or living in scarcity, you discovered exactly the opposite. This practice brought you more lightness, more stability, more peace, and above all, more prosperity. With money left over, even if little, you managed to invest more, accelerate your goals, and strengthen the construction of your silent wealth. This change wasn't about sacrifice, it was about priority. It wasn't about restriction, it was about intelligence. It wasn't about renouncing what you love, it was about not wasting energy and resources on what adds nothing to your life. This new lifestyle showed you something that few people realize. Wealth isn't a race against time, but a firm and constant walk where each small step matters. And when you choose to live below what you earn, you create space to grow with tranquility, without pressure, without debts, without that feeling of always running after loss. You become the owner of your money and not the other way around. And it's precisely this posture that separates those who just dream about wealth from those who really build it. As you advanced on this silent journey toward financial freedom, you began to notice something that would completely change the way you saw the world. The problems that before scared you began to seem different. Before, each setback seemed like a weight, a barrier, something that took your energy and moved you away from your goals. But little by little, as you evolved internally, you realized that these same problems could actually be doors that many people ignored simply because they were closed. This transformation began simply when you began to observe how people around you behaved when facing difficulties. Many complained, others gave up at the first sign of discomfort, and some even blamed the entire world for each small obstacle. Meanwhile, you began to ask yourself what would happen if, instead of running from problems, you faced them with another mentality, not as enemies, but as raw materials to build solutions that could help other people, generate value, and consequently generate income. That's when the key turned. You understood that every great idea is born from a discomfort. Every opportunity is born from something that's missing. Every business is born from someone who decided to solve a problem that others ignored. And this perception, despite being simple, completely reorganized your way of thinking. You began to see that behind every pain, there's a gap. Behind every difficulty, there's a possibility. And behind every unpleasant situation, there's space to create something new. Maybe it started when you realized that many people had difficulty doing something that was easy for you. Or when you noticed there was demand for a service that nobody was offering. Or even when someone asked you for help to solve something that seemed simple to you but extremely complicated for that person. These small signs, previously unnoticed, began to be seen with more attention, as if they were opportunities waiting for someone willing to transform them into something useful. Little by little, you began to understand that those who get rich in silence don't run from problems. On the contrary, they observe, analyze, study, and find ways to transform that into something that generates value. A problem can become a service. A difficulty can become a product. A discomfort can become a solution. And the bigger the problem you solve, the greater the value you deliver, and the greater the return you receive. And this ability to transform adversity into opportunity wasn't born overnight. It was shaped by your new mentality, by the knowledge you were acquiring, by the skills you were developing, and mainly by the courage to look at an obstacle and say, "What can I create from this?" And while many continued complaining about what's missing, you chose to see what's possible. While others despaired with each setback, you began to find paths. That's the difference between those who live stuck in the same cycle and those who build, in silence, a life full of possibilities. As you advanced through each of these steps, something deeply transformative happened inside you. It wasn't a single moment, nor a great event that changed everything at once, but rather the sum of small, silent choices that, day after day, began to shape a new path. And the most powerful thing about all of this is that even if nobody around you realized it immediately, you knew you were becoming someone different, more conscious, more prepared, stronger, and above all, more in control of your own trajectory. Looking back now makes you realize how each topic, however simple it seemed, connected to the next, forming a solid foundation that sustained this new lifestyle. Working in silence protected you from pessimistic looks. Studying financial education opened internal doors you didn't even know existed. Investing a little per month showed you the power of consistency. Building small sources of income gave you stability. Developing valuable skills multiplied your possibilities. Learning to live below what you earn gave you freedom. Transforming problems into opportunities put you in a position few reach. And surrounding yourself with people who think big elevated your thinking standard. In the end, you realize that getting rich silently isn't just about money, but about evolution. It's about becoming someone better, more conscious of what you do, firmer in decisions, and more confident in your own choices. True wealth doesn't happen when money arrives, but when you understand that it's just a consequence of the person you're becoming. And now that you know this, everything changes. Because from here on, you no longer depend on luck, opinions, or circumstances. You depend only on yourself, and that is liberating. If this video helped you, inspired you, or made you think about something new, I kindly ask you, share this content with someone who needs to hear this today. And of course, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving stories, reflections, and teachings that can transform your life in a silent yet profound way. Thank you very much for being here. See you in the next video.